Hello, everyone. This is Max, and welcome to this special edition of MAGA Bytes, my full-length podcast I do exclusively for members of Maximus Premium. But today is Premium Day. I do this once a month, and you guys, all my followers, premium members, non-premium members, members of Max Tracks, everybody basically gets to participate in MAGA Bytes, which is my full-length podcast, and I try to do these like at least once every 7 to 10 days. So we during holidays, of course, there's typically a little bit of a hiatus, but they are very popular with premium members, and I will be uploading this to my YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, just click any of the links up to the top, and it'll take you right there. I usually post the link to my YouTube channel periodically. So this will be processed later on today and will be uploaded there so you can enjoy it and play it back. And I hope everyone is having a wonderful Monday. And I'm joined in studio today with my sidekick, with the redoubtable, with the amazing vice chair of my network, the lead angel herself, the archangel, Roxie Balboa. Roxie, are you there?
Hello.
Hey, what's going on?
How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. I can't complain. It's good to hear your voice again.
Yeah. So what's been what? I don't know. We did MAGA Bytes last week, I think, on Premium.
Yeah, we did it last Monday. It was exactly a week ago. So I think that was episode 22, was it? Episode 22 or 23. It was one of those. It's hard to say because I lost count over the elections. I think one night we did like 5 MAGA Bytes. There was like 3 to 5. Yeah. So I lost count, and it's actually probably in the 30s. It's probably been like 30 something episodes of it.
That was a fun night. I mean, we were getting punch drunk there for a while. You were singing Beach Boys.
Well, it was funny too because everybody was like, I think we did our sign off at like 9 p.m. or 9:30 p.m. or something like that, and it was funny because everybody was still listening, and we were just talking about different types of wines. It got kind of like very relaxed. We were talking about food. We were talking about movies. It got to a point where like, you know what? I don't really want to pay any more attention to this election. Let's talk about something else. I'm burned out with the election, Yeah.
So, you told your infamous wine cooler story.
Oh yeah,
everybody got a kick out of that.
Yeah, the wine cooler story. Which was that was just how'd you get that wine so? I mean, what'd you do to it? I didn't do anything to it. I just stuck it in the refrigerator and told it to chill. I'll never. That's what it is. Every time I tell that story, everybody bursts out. You have to hear the whole story, everybody. So it's not that long of a story, but
I mean, if you're on Premium, you get to hear all these little cool stories. Definitely.
So these adventures that I've had, in life, it's just. But anyway, so it is Monday. We're all still here. You see, the sky didn't fall down. I did stop what I was doing this weekend briefly to just tell everybody that everything's going to be okay, and not to panic about the bank run. I know some people were concerned, and I know there's been, from what I understand from some of my followers, there's people going around in a lot of Telegram rooms. There's some people saying that it's the end. This is what it was anyways yesterday. This is what I was hearing. Yeah. And there's some disconcerting news because Signature Bank failed. I think it was announced or official yesterday. Maybe it was Saturday. And then, of course, what is it called again? VCB. What is the name of that bank that failed? The acronym again?
Isn't it SVB?
SVB? Silicon Valley, or SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, right? SVB, okay.
Yeah.
SVB, okay. Yeah, so SVB failed Friday, right? And so a lot of people were like just anticipating like another 2008 scenario crisis, which could happen. I mean, who's to say what something's going to be triggered like that? I mean, very few people ever see it coming. In hindsight, it's always clearer with these things. Oh, yeah, I could have seen it. All of a sudden you hear people coming out, oh, yeah, I knew this was going to happen. And no, you didn't. You would, if you knew it was going to happen, you would have said something about it. Now, you didn't see it coming. You were just as surprised as everybody else. I never believed that. But there was some people kind of jumping on it because, it is the Biden economy. He's caused record inflation. I mean, I kid you not. I have spent $10. I've mentioned this several times on the podcast. I've spent $10 for, a dozen eggs. And don't ask me why I pay. I mean, I pay, and I don't like doing that. I don't exactly.
I'm sure you don't.
I don't. I mean, I don't exactly like spending $10 on a carton of eggs, and but that I always use that as sort of, and then chickens, of course, everything's gone through the roof. Everything's double. They say what is it up like 23% on groceries or whatever the heck the number was, 20%. Now, come on, guys, it's about 100%. On many items. I don't know about how you guys feel. By the way, we're monitoring the garage and Unchained. And so if you want to drop a comment or a question, I'll be happy to answer it because I'll see it live. So feel free to just leave if you want to ask a question, just feel free to drop it. But, the thing is that the Biden inflation has caused all of this. And the Biden inflation, because I don't really consider him, I only consider him half humanoid, but on top of it, you have high interest rates, which is normal. You always get higher interest rates when there's inflation. That's the normal process. The Fed is going to raise interest rates. And so they've raised interest rates. The terrible thing is that I don't know if everybody's noticed this, but interest rates are going up, but people's savings interest rates on the bank accounts aren't going up. So there's usually a corresponding where people get higher interest rates on their savings. And of course, the banks don't have to do that because everybody's been pretty much filling them with cash since 2020, ever since COVID shut the entire economy down. And what we have going on right now is a major bank. Let's take this in isolation, though. Why is this major bank collapsing? And from all accounts, it's a different type of bank. I mentioned this on my channels yesterday. I think I mentioned it on both of them. I know I talked about it in the garage on Premium Saturday, but because I had some questions from some people. But this bank catered to big tech companies, essentially. So when they started withdrawing their deposits, that created a really fast-paced crisis for them, because within 1 week it went insolvent, essentially. Now, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but that's pretty much what happened. And so you had suddenly, I think that their depositors withdrew over $40 billion. And so they had to start selling out massive bond holdings that they had to raise capital, but it wasn't enough. And the FDIC came over and forced it into receivership to them, which is their right. That's the banking system. That's what the FDIC is there for, to prevent and to bail out the bank, not bail out, that's the wrong way of putting it, to ensure the depositors and to prevent the banking crisis from spreading, or for becoming a crisis in this one bank from spreading. And that's what they were essentially doing. So when people thought, I remember hearing some messages, I don't know where I saw this stuff, probably, Twitter or whatever on Friday. And it's like the feds are taking over banks. And then people started messaging me questions about it, thinking like there's a federal takeover. The Biden stormtroopers are going in and taking over the bank. No, this is what happens when a bank is failing. That's their job. That's what where some of a lot of our tax money goes to. And of course, they're saying that tax money is not going to be bailing out the bank and all this other kind of stuff, whatever. But the point is that if you ever go to your bank, you notice how it says FDIC insured up to $250,000. So that's what they do. They do this and they come in and then they just buy up whatever the depositors have on hand. They insure them with cash and they take over the bank, and then they'll spiral off the bank. It's closed essentially now. And that's what they do. That's their job. Again, now when it comes to, everybody was worried, well, this is going to spread. And I think that's where all the fear was coming in over the weekend. Okay, what if this spreads suddenly? What if we have Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Barclays? What if they all start failing? And I'm like, no, this bank was catering to a special clientele. Those companies have been suffering because of the inflation. That's where it's Biden's fault. because of the high inflation, the prices of their products are up and their sales are down. But this economy's been sluggish since 2020. And all that happened in the last 2 years is Biden's policies have slowed down the recovery from the stupidity of 2020 shutting it down. But I wouldn't go right off and just assume, okay, this is a 2008 scenario, because back then everybody had, one of the major things was everybody had themselves over credited, they were overextended. They had gotten involved with the subprime mortgage crisis is what 2008 was mainly about, and everybody was invested heavily in property that they shouldn't have been. But I think in this case here, it's kind of an isolated incident. But we'll see over the next coming days. All the regional banking stocks are all down today a little bit, but the Dow's up because I believe the idea is that the Feds are going to reduce or not keep increasing interest rates. And again, the way to suck up the extra cash that's floating around out there and reduce inflation, that's what's causing inflation, is the excess cash, is to increase interest rates. That's what they always do. You can go back generations. That's the thing. High inflation leads to high interest rates. So I don't know. I just say sit it out. The thing that we have to remember is don't panic, because if there's a real run with small depositors, suddenly everybody goes to their local bank and starts withdrawing all their savings, that'll create a crisis. And that's what the FDIC tries to, and the Treasury Department and the Feds try to avoid by getting ahead of it. That's why they're assuring everybody it's contained, this is isolated. Now, I know Signature Bank went under, but Signature Bank, which has some risky investments, one of them is Silicon Valley Bank. So that was one of their major investors. So of course there's an association there, and I don't fully know what the details are. That came out last night. But again, I know it's the fifth largest bank in Manhattan, but you're not seeing it today, across the board. Now, if we get through the rest of the week and there's no run on any of the banks, I really wouldn't worry too much about that. Because it's not going to happen. The thing is, let's not have a toilet paper type scenario here where everyone goes out and hoards their cash, essentially withdraws it, and creates the very crisis they're afraid that's going to happen. So they've actually become a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's what I was trying to tell people on the channels, because I don't know if anyone's really even paying that much attention to what's going on. And then, of course, I don't know if they're fully comprehending it and if they're just not using scare tactics to sell clicks, and that's not what I'm about. So just, everybody can just, like I said last night, do whatever you usually do, go about your business. Because if everyone was to go and suddenly withdraw all their money, look, the FDIC insures everybody up to $250,000 per account. So that pretty much covers most Americans. The only ones that really would be worried are going to be your millionaires and billionaires, but they don't keep billions of dollars sitting in a savings account at some bank. They have that invested across stocks and different companies. So that's their banks or their companies. Donald Trump does not have $10 billion sitting in his bank account. He's got that spread over his own private companies, which number around 500 when you really break them down. So anyways, everybody, this is MAGA Bytes. This is my full-length podcast that I do for members of Premium, and it's good to be with everybody today, all my followers that wants to tune in. And this will be available later on my YouTube channel. So go to @Maximus_4EVR. on YouTube. You can pull up my channel and subscribe to it. You'll find it right away. And I'm joined in studio with my sidekick, the indelible Roxie Balboa, and she's always ready for a good fight. So I'm in my corner ready to come out. Oh, I hear that New York accent coming out now. Hey yo, Roxie. Hey yo, what's up? Yo, your sister's with me. I'll call you back later. See ya.
Hey, yo, Rocco.
Hey, yo, what's going on? What's happening? Anyways, I see a lot of people here, so I'm going to take a glance. We have some questions. I know we already have some questions here, so.
Yeah, we have some questions that were submitted before, but again, like Max said, if you guys have any pending questions, just throw them in on Chained or the Garage, and we'll pick them up and answer them. It's part of what we do here on MAGA Bytes.
That's it. So Anyways, throw a question at me. Do we have something? Do we have something else?
We do. Yeah. I mean, we could get our mind off of what's going on in Silicon Valley and head across the map to DC.
Yeah.
So how do we fix the DC legal swamp?
Are you kidding? Wow. Who asked that question?
They will
Okay,
remain
so
anonymous.
remain anonymous, right? Okay. So how do we fix the DC legal swamp, right? That's actually fairly simple, right? Donald Trump gets reelected and he immediately fires the head of the FBI. He appoints and it gets confirmed. I would say, and some people will probably take issue with this, but someone like Ted Cruz as Attorney General. The only reason I say that is because he's a constitutional scholar, and I know he's a true patriot. I may not always agree with him though. And then just sets them loose to clean up the Department of Justice and the FBI, the lower ranks. And essentially, I would just at the top, besides the FBI director, everybody that's been appointed by Obama and Biden need to resign. So you force them to resign or you fire them. And you bring up people from the lower ranks in the lower echelons that haven't been corrupted to the top tier positions within the Department of Justice and the FBI. So that's the first step you do. And that was one of the biggest things that Donald Trump didn't achieve in his first term, which was he really did not pay enough attention to the Department of Justice. He kind of franchised that off. He has to take more direct action because it has been, like we know, weaponized. And so that is something that, I mean, you go, okay, well, that doesn't sound like a quick fix or something. No, it's not a quick fix, but it's really requires a few different steps. You just get rid of the corrupt individuals and you replace them with good apples. You get rid of the rotten apples, you replace them with good apples. I mean, what did Malone say in The Untouchables? If you're afraid of getting a rotten apple, don't go to the grocer, go off to the orchard and get it off the tree instead. And so, that is the policy that's what I would advise him to do. And then as far as the rest of the swamp goes, well, when you have the DOJ and the FBI suddenly looking for crimes and investigating crimes instead of trying to make up crimes, and they're operating and they're enforcing existing laws, and they're doing it objectively, and justice is blind again, that'll trickle on down. That'll just trickle on down throughout Washington. That'll be felt throughout Washington. All of a sudden, everybody will be honest again, to some extent. And there'll never be a utopia. It'll never be swamp free. Don't forget, DC literally physically is a swamp geographically. I mean, that's its historical ecology. It's just a big swamp to begin with. So, it'll always be a little swampy there, but that's how I would begin. And then, of course, you give Republicans larger majorities in the House, a majority in the Senate, and you look. I think Jim Jordan, with the investigations, the way they're shaping up and the way they're starting, they're not as dramatic as I'd like to see at this time, but I think it's a great start. And I think that they're doing some really good stuff. But again, the Republicans are operating with a very slim majority in the House. They're still up 35 seats from 2010. I don't know if 2020. I don't know if everybody realizes that or not, but they over the course of 2 election cycles, they gained a net of 35 seats. So they're up. They have a much larger, a much larger group of Republicans, than they did a few years ago. And as a Senate, we need to, of course, take the Senate. And that's an important thing when you have a split Senate the way we do right now, they have a 1-seat majority. Of course, that limits what we can do. But when you have both congressional bodies operating with multiple investigations and subpoenaing people and bringing them in, it's always a good thing. There's my little tidbit on that question.
Do you think when I'm going to say when Trump is elected in his next term, do you think that's going to be his primary thing to start and that he'll make a big dent in actually cleaning out the swamp?
I think it's something that's a little unrealized. He is running an unconventional campaign, so that's good. And the unconventional part of it is the fact that he's actually running a conventional campaign. unconventional for him, but it's conventional for everybody else, which is, I think, going to throw people off. He's putting out policy proposals, which I talk about in Max Tracks, and I brought them up on Premium, and I even brought them up on my regular channels. And I think it's a very different campaign than it was in 2020 and 2016, especially from 2016's perspective. So I think I have not seen yet him talk about the Department of Justice, except to say that there's going to be vengeance, and he kind of uses these brash adjectives to describe what he's going to do when he gets in there. I think he needs to be more descriptive and say, okay, here's a list of people that I'm going to pick the attorney general from, or here's another list of people for judges I'm going to put on the DC circuit and stuff like that when there's an opening. And I think he needs to be more direct, as to what he's going to do when it comes to the FBI. I think he should just say, I'm going to fire the FBI director. I know that is kind of red meat, that part right there, but I think he needs to be a little even more descriptive and say, I'm going to go down the list and we're going to get rid of all of these Obama appointments, and we're going to bring up people who really care about enforcing federal laws blindly, just across the board, and they're not looking to be utilized by a partisan group of individuals, and they're not looking to be partisan. And I think he should be a little more like I said, a little more descriptive on that.
I'm sure he'll hone down more when he starts, doing, giving more speeches and stuff like that, right? I'm sure he'll call that out directly, because that's a big thing on people's minds.
Yeah, it's going to be big. I mean, we're this is something that's going to come more and more up because of the great injustices that we see now with the January 6th riot. And look at the shaman. I mean, even have Elon Musk calling for his release, because isn't he's being held still, that guy, right? The QAnon shaman, isn't he still being held? I think he is. And, so the only counter argument I saw from the left that really had, anything substance to it was they were trying to argue that, well, he was already in there rioting. And so, he came out later and told everybody to go home, but he was already in there rioting. Did anybody pay attention? He was getting a tour, for crying out loud. He's just a guy who's a little, he's high on something. We're not exactly. So this is just a lot of injustice that's going on here.
Yeah. And he was a little eccentric with the way he was dressed and whatnot, but if you do look at the tape, there was nothing, he wasn't vandalizing anything.
No, not at all. Not like that. I could tell. And there were certain areas he shouldn't have been in, but then he was escorted there. So why was he even brought there? So there's all these questions that people need to, to evaluate and look at and come up with I think, the great thing is that the video is being released and everybody can kind of make up their own minds, and it's undermining the Democrat argument and kind of reaffirming everything that everybody's been saying for 2 years. So, it wasn't what everyone thinks it was, or at least what some people think it was. It wasn't as bad.
Okay, let's move on to, I know a topic that's you're very passionate about, with taxation. Do you think that taxing the middle class is going to get us out of debt, or is taxing the middle class going to make the rich richer and the poor poorer?
You can't tax and spend yourself into prosperity. It doesn't work. So absolutely, not. You can't. You're going to start taxing middle class people. The middle class is the backbone of the American economy. So if you start taxing middle class people, they start hoarding their cash. Typically, they don't spend it, and you start creating a recession. So you take more money out of the hands of people, and they have less disposable income. In this environment with high inflation, then you increase, and you have high interest rates, then you increase high taxes. You've just recreated the late 1970s. So sure, if Biden wants to repeat everything that Carter did that was so successful in the late 70s that caused Ronald Reagan to win in a landslide, go right ahead and do it. But it's not fair to the people. No, I'm very much, everything everybody should know about me, I'm very much opposed to income tax. I believe it should be abolished. And we should restrict the IRS to literally collecting cards that people fill out, postcard size, tax returns every year and just account and do the accounting. The IRS should literally just be a bunch of accountants working for the federal government. That's it. I think that's a huge savings right there. But the reason you can, in my opinion, the only way you can get rid or greatly reduce the size of the bureaucracy when it comes to the IRS is you need to abolish income tax and move to a national consumption tax. First, you abolish income. It has to be. They have to go together. You have to abolish income tax, and then you move to a national consumption tax. And then, of course, the arguments I've seen from people on both sides against that is the idea, well, you can't. It's not fair to the poor and all this other kind of stuff. You just exempt food and water and beverages. Across the board, hot and cold, foods, water, and beverages. You just exempt all of that from a consumption tax. And then you also, when it comes to like housing and stuff like that, you can play with it to, low income housing and stuff. So, I'm just saying, where you can actually reduce certain services for people that have a lower income, as far as the tax burden goes. But that's that. And then it's not just a consumption tax. You also move to higher tariffs on foreign goods, because that's how the United States raised revenue for the most of its history before there was income tax across the board. Before the 1930s, most of the revenue the United States generated, especially in the 19th century, the 19th century, the 1800s, was through tariffs. And so Trump actually believes in that without articulating it again like that, because he actually believes that high tariffs protect American jobs by forcing companies to do business here, and hire American employees, and it creates more of a made in America. But there's actually another benefit to that, and it keeps the playing field more or less even. So that's where he says fair trade. But there's another benefit to that, a historical one for the GOP. Going back to the era of President McKinley, the policy of Republicans was high tariffs to protect protect Americans from foreign goods, from cheap foreign goods, as they would call it back in those days. So you would see a lot less made in China and a lot more made in America, but you'd also you'd also see a lot more revenue be brought in, and that's what the Republicans used to look at. Also, there was a source of revenue. It wasn't really until we get to FDR, 20 years or so after income tax, I think, was established with the 16th Amendment, that you start having more and more of the burden being shifted towards taxing income. And then we start moving more and more over the decades after the Second World War and everything to more of a global economy, or at least in its infancy. And, there was burdens. These burdens were these tariffs. We lowered them, but we had to raise the revenue elsewhere, and we raised it on people's incomes. And I always thought that the missed opportunity there would have been sales tax, because if you go to a consumption tax, then it's basically left up to the individual they have the disposable income in their hand. They can decide if they want to dispose of it or not. Now, I know another argument against a consumption tax is, well, what about the black market? And you say, okay, there's going to be a black market suddenly. You're going to create a black market for it. There's already black markets for everything. People trade all the time. People buy off of each other all the time. You go on to eBay or whatever, and I don't know if they charge sales tax, frankly. I hardly ever go on to eBay. But, if you sell an item to someone locally, you don't have to charge them sales tax or anything. So in a sense, you've got it's below the radar, or at least it's not on the radar, because it has nothing to do. It's a sale between individuals. If you've got something I want, I'll give you cash for it. That goes on anyway. It's not going to go on for groceries, though, because unless people start growing them in their backyard, you still have to go to the grocer. So, but, of course, you want to do away with you don't want to tax groceries, and some cities do, some cities don't. I'm opposed to that. But nevertheless, the black market argument, I don't know. I guess in a way, it's, if you look at it, like if people are going to start selling, used cars to each other personally instead of trading them in or whatever. And I guess there's a way of looking at it. Depends, but it would definitely restructure the way we do transactions in America. But I think it would be better that way, because income tax, is just going to drive money out of people's pockets, and then they themselves will not be able to choose where they want to invest it. And that's terrible for the economy. That's why I'm opposed to any kind of high taxes. And like I said, I'm opposed to income tax. So I'm a true libertarian when it comes to that, at least that part of it. I agree with their platform. Does that make sense to everybody? If I didn't make any sense to anybody, let me know.
It not only made sense, it made dollars. How do you like that?
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Okay, what are your thoughts on the unanimous House vote to declassify info on the origins of COVID?
I think that's great. I'm glad the House, unanimous House vote. I think that's great. That shows you that some Democrats are even sick of the lies. I did see a top Democrat come out and say something about January 6th just this morning. What was her name? Naomi Wolf or something? She was a well-known liberal and apologized in an article she did on Substack, just apologizing for everything that she had said about what went on January 6th. I think now, extrapolating from that, you can look at the COVID, and with COVID 1984, look, I'm glad they're going to declassify that information, and I'm glad it's going to be put out there, and I think people should know, because one of the biggest things was where it originated from, and I think it's important that we get that information out there and we validate it, and I'm glad to see that the Republicans and the Democrats agree on this, whatever the reasons are. I'm not going to slight when the Democrats do something good. I'm going to say it, and I'm glad that they signed on with the GOP. Hopefully, the Senate does the same thing.
Yeah, but then what? I mean, it's like everything gets declassified, the truth comes out, but then does what happens from there? Who gets held accountable?
Well, that's another thing. I mean, the only way to hold a foreign power accountable is to put sanctions on them or high tariffs. And we don't have Trump as president. If we had Trump as president, I'd say that he's going to do it unilaterally, because the president controls the tariffs and he can institute sanctions under many powers that Congress has given him over the decades, the office of president. I mean, what happens? What do you expect? Do you expect there to be a trial or something and you subpoena people from China? That's not going to, scientists from Chinese labs. That's not going to happen. But the only way you exact punishment internationally is either you take a country to court, or individuals in a country to an international court, through sanctions. They can be unilateral, bilateral, and multilateral, or through the best way is to use Trump doctrine and use the power of the purse. And the president has tremendous latitude when it comes to tariffs. Essentially, he can start a trade war, and he doesn't need congressional approval for that.
What about organizations, though, like the WHO and like the CDC, because they went along with a lot of it, and they put all these restrictions and mandates and all that other stuff where they suggested them, and everybody kind of like went along with it. Do they get held accountable for following like all this disinformation?
If there was definitely disinformation, anybody who's lying and they could prove it, if you can prove it and you have evidence of that, certainly if they're brought up before, look, when you're brought up before Congress and they swear you in, if you lie under oath, you're committing perjury. You don't want to do that. So it depends on what the House does. There's a lot of stuff we haven't unpacked yet. The Republicans have only been in charge of the House for 2 months, right? So there's a lot of stuff they haven't unpacked yet. And so we have to just wait and see. But yeah, I mean, if people were lying and stuff like that, and then they brought in and they lie again, otherwise their careers are going to be shattered. I mean, does anybody take some of these people seriously anymore? There's real question marks about that. There's certain people that aren't seen anymore that were on television every day a couple of years ago. So yeah. Obviously they're running and hiding.
Do you think Fauci will end up in jail?
I don't know. I often, with the whole jail thing from both sides, whenever people say someone's going to go to jail, wake me when it happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wake me when that happens. Don't I'm not going to ever jump on that bandwagon. Oh yeah, I do say, look, I think I posted on Twitter the other day that I think the people that did, that were complicit on January 6th should be sent to the DC jail. I'm being half serious when I say that, because there are a lot of questions about, who was involved and what was involved. But no matter what, the way they carried on and the way the media reported on it was major exaggeration. I'm putting it politely.
Yeah, I'd say so. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Janet Yellen saying she won't bail out SVB. Does the House get a say in this regard?
Yeah, I mean, they can bring her up. They can, ask her questions, but she has latitude because she's the Treasury Secretary. So, I mean, I don't think the House really has much they can say about that. Unless she violates her oath of office in some way, I don't see that as being an issue. But she's not going to bail them out, and that's fine. I mean, it's a more of a tactical decision than anything else, I guess. I don't know whether the House will actually want to do anything about that if they disagree with her or anything like that.
All right. Yeah, we already kind of went into everything, implications of the SVB failing and whatnot. So let's go to polls. With everything going on, how is Biden at a 50% approval rating on Rasmussen? Has their method changed?
I would just say to you that there's something about their polling that it's always seems like there's more stability than there should. I've seen it with Obama and everything. That's the daily tracking poll with them, though. So I wouldn't get too worried about that. Look at other polls if you want to kind of cross-reference it. But here's my thing, and I think everyone should know this. I use polls, but they're not as important as they used to be anymore because they're notoriously inaccurate. Okay? And so I think that you across the board, and don't look at any particular conservative pollster as being something better than they ought to be, because we've got a lot of conservative pollsters were wrong in November. All right, so some of them overshot themselves as far as they were anticipating more than there was, especially with certain Senate races. Like they were saying that it was close in I think in Oregon, or was it Washington? I forgot which one of those two states had a Senate race. And then, of course, the governor's race in New York, which it was close, but it wasn't as close as everyone thought it was going to be. And so, you got to kind of like look at them and always give yourself, they say plus or minus 3 to 4%. No, it's plus or minus like 7 to 8 to 10%. So just take that with a grain of salt. And again, a poll is a snapshot in any case. It's just it's the moment in time. And there are a lot of variables. And it's very unpredictable if you're being honest in your polling, and it's just you're inferring stuff from numbers, and you're assuming based on, okay, well, past electorates and how they looked in the final vote, and you kind of infer and you weight your categories that way. So there's a lot of subjective bias that goes into polling. And that's why I don't have a lot of respect for polling as a science. It's a little bit more of an art than a science. And I'm sure some people will disagree with me on that, and that's fine. But I do believe, and I think some of them do a really good job. I'll use them from time to time, but I try to always maintain, don't get so hung up on them, and you think more, because everybody, you always want to, believe something. And in this case, it's a negative thing. Okay, do you want to, I don't want to believe this, but I mean, oh man, this is terrible. He may not be 49%. That may have been a skew from one particular day in the 3-day or 4-day or 5-day rolling average. And it could be, he could be at 40% or 42% or 43%. Do I believe there are that many people in America that like Biden? I don't know. I think that there's no such thing as a Biden supporter. I think that they're just diehard progressive Democrats that'll vote for in their mind, the worst, well, not in their mind, but in our mind, just in general, the worst of all available choices. And so far, he's the only really bad one out there. So, because no one's running against him in the primary for the Democratic nomination. So, I mean, I wouldn't get too hung up on that.
Yeah, I think we all learned our lesson this past November about polls.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Yeah.
All right, let's take a question about Trump. Was Trump able to get rid of the Patriot Act? And if not, why do you think he didn't?
Was he able to get rid of the Patriot Act? Well, I mean, he didn't have to sign the reauthorization for it, but he did, if I remember correctly. And I think there was some changes to over the course of the last decade or so. There's been changes to the data collecting aspects of it, but he could have just refused to sign the reauthorization of it. Yeah, I mean, I don't support parts of the Patriot Act, but there are other parts of it that I find that are useful. I think in its original incarnation, it was a terrible idea. But then again, the reason it was adopted was because 9/11 had just happened not too long before it. So there's a lot of things about it that need to be changed. I would let it sunset if I was him. And I look, if he gets reelected, I'm pretty sure it'll be up for reauthorization in his second term. I would let like somebody like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz have at it, rewrite it before it's authorized again. But he could have. I mean, Trump could have just refused it. Sure.
Well, guys, I hope you're enjoying Premium or our Premium Day. And this is MAGA Bytes. We do this once a week over on Premium, along with a ton of other stuff. I mean, we've got Garage, we've got The Fortress, we've got Max's Mini Masterpieces, we have Max Tracks. There's so much in Premium. It's really a community of just like-minded people who've been there and talk about different things. Max is in there hanging out with everybody in his garage, having some coffee, talking politics, talking life, right, Max? We have a good time in there.
Yeah, sometimes we're even singing songs. We're doing karaoke. You don't want to miss karaoke night. Now I'm telling you.
Especially when Max has had a few wine coolers.
I'm telling you, you don't want to miss me perform and sing. If you ever wanted to, just rethink your whole place in life, then just listen to me sing a song, and you'll just be wondering what you've been doing, wrong all your life to actually be tortured through that. And I'm kidding, but anyways, because I can't hold a note. But anyway, no, but seriously, it's fun. Premium is. I'm telling you, it really is. It's a different world, and it's a great collection of patriots. And I learned things from them, and it's great to engage. And there's just a lot of stuff that it was a long time coming. I actually came up with the idea for Premium early last year, so it was like around the time we were doing Pirates. I had to go back and kind of like I was going through and I was thinking through my notes on Premium, and I started making outlines for it a little over a year ago, like 13 months ago. And so it had, I'm telling you, give it a try. And what do you have to lose on that? You would really, really love it. And so anything more to say on that right now?
And you're lucky this month. I mean, it is St. Patrick's Day coming up. It's a special month.
It's Friday, right? It's Friday.
It is Friday.
Day, the 17th.
Yeah. Everybody's Irish on Friday.
I'm telling you. No, seriously, St. Patrick's Day, you're going to get lucky. You get lucky with Max on this one. Max is going to be me. I'm offering you 33%. 33% off Premium for this month's special on it. So reach out to, I mean, you really can't beat that. I mean, it's
not for everything you get. I mean, it's like there is something for everybody on Premium, because you have the podcast where you could just kind of tune in and listen to while you're in the garden, while you're commuting to work, while you're cleaning the house. And then there's his in-depth analysis that he does where you could sit down with a cup of coffee and read it. And he has his little mini masterpieces where he teaches you real nuggets of information that you would really never think about. And then there's Max Tracks, which has, Max Tracks, it's an experience in itself. I mean, he has all these little sections in there. He has his blogs in there. You could learn something about history. You can learn something about the Bible. You could learn something about the Second Amendment. It's like you get a whole infusion of a semester of college in one little newsletter. It's really cool.
It's a labor of love when I sit down and write those out. I mean, these aren't like your generic, daily, weekly newsletters that you get that are canned. I actually sit there and it's like you have like 7 to 10 different topics with 7 to 10 different articles that I've sat down and written, and it's a lot of fun, and I've got something for everybody in there, and it's just stuff it's just what I'm thinking about. I mean, I literally sit down and I just start breaking, okay, what am I finding interesting? And then I start writing about it, and I go through that, and I do the headlines too. I do all the headlines of some of the major stuff that's going on over the last week or two. So it really is, but we have something for everybody. So it's not like you're not coming on there and it's like, oh, I'm just getting, just this, whatever it is. I don't know. You're getting a bunch of canned, podcasts or whatever. My podcast, I take questions. I spend most of half of the time, besides talking about everything else, as I'm answering questions. And that's just on top of me just being in the garage answering anything that's posted. So it's like an old school message board, except it's a big full-fledged chat. And, I'm in there. Sometimes I'm in there for hours throughout the day, and it's like being in class, because we're actually sitting there as having a Socratic discussion, especially with some of the brainy people I have in there, because they're really, we have some really top people in their fields, and they're just smart. And then we have, there's just a great collection of just wonderful, family-oriented individuals. It's a great thing. It really is. So I really highly recommend it. Take advantage. Get the 33% off. Contact Roxie. What's your email address again? I forget.
It is RoxieBalboa1 at gmail.com. Shoot me an email and tell me you want to get lucky with Max, and I will give you the information on how to sign up and take advantage.
I think that's a pretty good idea. I think that's exactly what you should do. So make sure you stop and do that. So shoot her an email right now.
Or message me.
Or message her, DM her. And everybody should have it. It's at Roxie_Balboa.
Oh, see, that you remember.
That I remember. That one there I remember, so, I forgot the other one. I don't know why.
And not only are we running a discount on premium this month too, but they're also doing an encore to the encore for Civics Maximus Seminars 501 Socialism versus Capitalism, which was a huge hit last month.
Right. We're doing that. So you should have gotten the email. If you didn't get now everybody should be on my email list. So if you're not getting my emails, make sure you email Roxie and let her know that. So just send her and say, I'm not getting Max's email. So everybody gets those. And I send out other stuff too. So you get some perks if you sign up for my email list. But the one I sent, Roxie sent it out the other night. And we're doing 30 to 50% off this month, again, for St. Patrick's Day. You're going to get lucky again here. So on the second encore for Civics Maximus 501, Socialism versus Capitalism, and I'll have the trailer playing at the end of this broadcast on YouTube tonight, and because this one I'll upload it. But you can see the trailer as it is. It's already posted on the channel, and it's a great seminar. It was a big hit, and I would highly recommend that. Because that's
and we're giving and for the students. Sorry,
and for the students. Yeah, no. And socialism. First of all, the topics of socialism and capitalism. This was a really important thing because this is the indoctrination of our youth. I mean, we have liberal professors and teachers out there that are trying to brainwash our youth, and they're processing them, and they're making them into little socialists. They're not even out of high school, and it's happening. Okay. And so what do you think what happens when they become voters at 18? They go out and they start voting Democrat. I mean, it's a terrible tragedy that's happening to a youth that actually think our founders were a bunch of white racist bigots that should be eliminated and expunged from history. And they're embracing ideas from people like Karl Marx. And they're heading straight towards a world that's dominated by people like Mao and Stalin. And I'm telling you this because I talk about this ad nauseum extensively. I teach on it at my latest civics seminar. This was a really, really, I mean, I said it when we finished it. I said it during it. We got a lot of people that messaged us about this, and I think it was like my best civics seminar ever. It really, really was, because of the topic was very, very timely. And And then I go into capitalism, and we spend an entire day talking about the history of capitalism. I trace its entire roots. So it's very educational for children, which brings me to the other element. What were you gonna say about that a moment ago, Roxie?
No, where, we really want to emphasize students for this seminar because of the importance that Max was saying. So we are now going to be, Civics Maximus Seminar is now going to be providing certificates of completion at the end of all of his seminars. That way, those of you who homeschool your children will actually you will receive a completed and signed certificate. That way you could submit it for extra credit, and of course it's according to your state laws and what they require as for extra credit, which is a huge help, especially for those who are seeking, to get that a little bit of a help there.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll be issuing certificates of completion, and then you may be able to use that for extra credit depending on your state laws. And for more information on that, contact Roxie again. I know there's already homeschooling parents that have been doing that. And so opening it up for everybody that wants to, and it is something that could become valuable for getting extra credit for families and their kids. So just hit me up with that. So this is educational, but I know it's also can be beneficial. And I highly recommend the seminar. So again, doing 30 to 50% off. Contact Roxie about that, or any of the angels about 501. Really DM any of them, and you should know who they are. We've got their handles posted in the rooms and on the channels, and they're the administrators. So just reach out to any of them, and they'll get you hooked up with that.
Yeah, and like Max was saying too, if you did not receive his latest email distribution, which has all this information listed in there, just let me know. Send me a DM or an email, and I'll make sure that I get you on the email distribution, and I'll also send it to you so that way you have everything right in your inbox so you could digest it all.
Exactly. So moving on, anyways, what else do we have? Got another one?
Yeah, I think that's a wrap for the questions for now. You covered everything in depth, so thank you for that.
Oh, no problem. I tried my best. Anyways, so I think Julie just dropped something in the room there.
She did. She's loving the MAGA Bytes today.
Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it, Julie. Hey, Julie. Wait a minute. We have actually. So Darren asked a question about Rasmussen, and I'm just skipping through here and just kind of like looking through some of the statements here. I think that was that's all pretty much all the questions, and I think that's pretty good. We got a wrap. So anyway, well, I hope everyone enjoyed MAGA Bytes for tonight. And it was a pleasure being with everyone for Premium Day. I'll be in the garage and Unchained answering questions on and off throughout the entire rest of the day. And it's been fun. We'll have to do this again sometime soon.
Same time next week.
Same time next week. If you want to join us for next week's, make sure, again, contact Roxie. Get ahead on that. Get 33% off for St. Patrick's Day and join Premium. And would love to have you. And also, don't forget, 501 is going to be at the end of the month, the 31st and the 1st of April, 31st of March and the 1st of April. We'd love to have you attend that. Get 30 to 50% off. You get a certificate from me. And for completion, it's great for kids. And it's great for families. It's just great in general. It's a family seminar. I'd love to have you for that. But anyways, God bless you guys. It's been great. I will see you around the campfire. Roxie, thanks again for everything.
Anytime. Thank you. Thanks for answering everything, Max.
I try my best. So anyways, God bless you all. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.